Oh, hello there. How is everyone? Good. Lovely day. You see that sheep behind me? He's been eyeing me up now for a few minutes. I don't know if he's in shop, but cagey motherfucker. So this is my podcast, which I haven't done in a while. I've been busy. And I've decided I'm going to film it and then rip the audio and put the audio out as audio only podcast, simply just because I find editing video easier than editing audio for some reason. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some sort of reason behind it. People with more experience will probably be able to tell me why. But anyway, let's kick it off with some motoring news. I suppose the biggest one in the last week or so has been the announcement of Ferrari's newest car, which I can't keep up with Ferrari. The 488 still seems like a new car to me, but even that's 2 generations old. Because now we have the F8 Tributo, and then there's the SF90 and blah blah. Anyway, so this newest car, the 296 GTB, is a hybrid, it's a 3-litre V6 hybrid turbo. I'm confusing myself now. So 3-litre V6 turbo hybrid, rear-wheel drive, smaller car than the SF90. And yeah, it's great that Ferrari are still making combustion engine sports cars. We have to celebrate that. It's going to have 818 horsepower. That's combined between the combustion engine and the electrical assistance. It weighs something like nearly 1,600 kilos. Some people are saying, it's the best looking Ferrari since the 458. It's not terrible looking. It didn't give me wowzers in my trousers when I saw it, if I'm being honest. It's fine. It's inoffensive. To call it pretty, I think would be a stretch. Again, I was given out about this on the Instagram not so long ago. Ferrari are one of the worst for this, but when they release images of their new vehicles in these like studio renders, it doesn't put them quite literally in the right light. So I'm going to wait until I see an actual one in the metal or the flesh or whatever way you want to put that terrible term. But part of me wishes they just... Okay, the hybrid is inevitable. They needed to bring down the average CO2 of the fleet, which is growing, which we're soon to have a fucking SUV, the Pearl Sang as it's being touted as at the moment. But the hybrid system that's in it is in excess of 100 kilos. So part of me is like, why didn't they just forgo the hybrid system, make the car lighter and just rely off the combustion engine? Because the combustion engine in itself is good for 700-ish brake horsepower. But it being such a small capacity engine and being turbocharged, there will be a whole lot of lag to get to that power figure. So they need the hybrid system to cover off the lag of the turbos. So it probably wouldn't work without the hybrid system. So be it. Fine. I'm sure it'll be absolutely amazing. 296 is a bit of a misnomer, because it is a 3-litre, not a 2.9, because the naming, this is generally how Ferrari name their cars, the numbers, if you're ever wondering. So 296 is to represent 2.9 litres, and it's 6 cylinders of being a V6. But technically it should be a 306, but Peugeot got to that one before Ferrari did, so they went with 296. And also they used to have a race car back in the late 50s and early 60s, the 296S, kind of similar to the original TR. So yeah, I'll give them that much. But hey, look, it's a new Ferrari, as I said, and it's got a combustion engine in it, so I won't cry foul too much. I'm just being a bit cynical about it. And I look forward to seeing people drive it, because I probably never will. There's another edition of the Fast and the Furious. It's possibly out already. I haven't been keeping up to date with the franchise as a whole, to be honest with you. I haven't seen one, I think, since possibly the 5th one, or maybe the 6th one, whichever one was the last one with Paul Walker, and it was the last one I saw. Not that I have anything against them. I think they're hilariously brilliant B movies. The original one is the best one, without a shadow of a doubt, because no one expected it to be as successful as it was. So therefore there wasn't, well, I wouldn't say there was egos, because Vin Diesel was in it, but no one expected it to be big, and there was a large chunk of salt taken in the making of the movie, and I think that worked to its advantage. But forget about the original one. The new one's coming out. It's just called F9. I think it's called F9 and the saga of the fast, whatever. But obviously they need a hero car in the movie, so they've taken obviously Dom Vin Diesel's character, famously had that ridiculous Dodge Charger in the first edition, and I think it may have popped up in a couple of other of the movies. But this time around, he's having what's called the Charger Hellalicious. So basically, what they've done, I can't remember the name of the company. Some crazy company in America have taken a Charger and then taken the V8. I think it's a 6.2 litre V8 from Hellcat, and so they've taken that and put it into the middle of a Charger. So it's a mid-engined Charger, creating 707 brake horsepower, and it doesn't weigh very much because they took loads of unnecessary crap out of it. It looks ridiculous. I'd love to hate it, but it's so outrageous. I kind of like it. I found out the other day as well that Vin Diesel has been a producer of the Fast and Furious movies since the 5th installment, and in his contract as being a producer, he gets to keep one of the hero cars from each edition of the movie. So I assume he's probably going to be getting a Hellalicious to be parked into his garage, which is probably filled with many appreciating assets, let's put it that way. But yeah, maybe I'll see this new Fast and Furious movie, maybe I won't. I don't know if I've had to have seen previous ones, whether the storyline is that linear. We shall see. I'd love for some cinema, now that they're back open somewhat, to do maybe a Fast and Furious festival, and show them all over the space of a weekend, or, well, I don't know how long would it take. 9 movies at about 2 hours a pop. What's that, 18 hours? Yeah, 9 hours a day. Put in some breaks, we'll call it 10, 11 hours. It could be done. Maybe even over a week. Do two a night over 5 nights or whatever. And then obviously, 2 a night over 4 nights, and then you can round out the week with the newest one. But anyway, yeah, there you go. Another crazy car brought to us by the world of the Fast and the Furious. Porsche news. They've released the GTS of the current 992 generation, which is great. Lighter weight, more aggressive version of the 911, which tends to be the pick of the bunch of the regular 911s before you get into the GT cars. It's about as close as you can get to a GT car without getting a GT car. Wasp. Yeah, and it'll be available with a manual gearbox, which is great. The new wheels in the GTS aren't great because the GTS wheels tended to be quite cool, kind of centre lock, multi-spoke wheels, whereas these ones are a bit blah. But then it's probably an option wheel that'll cost more money because Porsche do like packing out an on-the-road price with a large list of optional extras. But along with that as well, the regular Carrera, well, Carrera S, because you can only get in the Carrera S, has also been now released with a manual gearbox, which, again, I can't be cynical. I'm so happy that Porsche still make the 911 available with a 911 gearbox, or with a 911 gearbox, with a manual gearbox. It's the 7-speed auto, or the 7-speed manual, which is great to see. Apparently it's as good as you would expect it to be. Porsche don't do things by halves. I'd be interested to see how many they sell, because I assume most people buy 911s with PDK big gearboxes at this point. I think actually the biggest market for manual 911s is actually the US, which seems to be a trend now with all cars. Anything that's available with a manual seems to sell pretty well in America. And as I've said many times before, I think the last bastion of the, well, I suppose, as analog as we can call cars these days, the analog car, naturally aspirated engine. Obviously the Carrera doesn't, has the turbos in it, but a normal combustion engine, manual gearboxes, the last place we're going to get them will be from the States. So it's been doing it for years. Even BMW offer M5s and the likes with manual gearboxes that we didn't get in Europe. So yeah, God bless America. I've got a little off trend in this episode by not starting off by talking about an electric vehicle, because there hasn't really been that many actually released in the last couple of weeks, surprisingly. But there's this, you might have seen this, it's from a company who, again, I can't remember the name of the company, I think E1 or Electric something or other. Basically, they've designed this thing called the EL1, which is somewhat of a design homage to the original S1 Quattro. It's a good looking render because it's not a real car yet, and of course it's got dual electric motors, 4-wheel drive, blah blah, stupid amounts of power. Whether it'll actually become real, I don't know, but this is going to be the thing with electric vehicles I see going forward. These companies making these like vaporware statements of like, look at this cool retro-esque, modern-esque sports car that evokes nostalgia in you, and it's just got, it's got electric motors because they're easy to make, and it's got loads of horsepower, and then it will never see the light of day. Again, maybe I'm just being too cynical, but it does look good. But I would rather have it with the 5-cylinder engine from the current RS3, which the newest RS3 is actually on its way. Keeps the 5-pot. It's obviously 4-wheel drive, Sportback and saloon variants, and it will have a drift mode and 400 horsepower and be capable, if you get the right option boxes ticked, it'll do 180 miles an hour apparently, which is ludicrous. Not in the Tesla way, it's just ludicrous generally to have that much power and, get away from me, that much power and speed in a hatchback. And basically it's just going to be a more expensive Golf 4. It'll be better looking than the Golf probably, because the Mark 8 Golf, no, give me a Mark 7 all day long. But yeah, more on that to come. They've only shown some camoed versions of it going sideways to demonstrate the drift mode, obviously. But yeah, I'll take that engine from the RS3 in this EL1 homage to the Quattro S1 with its big box arches. Yeah, and you can keep your batteries and your electric motors and throw them in the ocean, because that's probably where they'll end up in a few years anyway. Speaking of cars that have yet to see the light of day, Aston Martin have re-released the Valkyrie AM4 Pro, which is something they were going to scrap because it was going to be part of them taking part in the new hypercar regulations of the World Endurance Championship, Le Mans, etc. Then they decided they weren't going to do that, and when Lawrence Stroll took over, there was some things cut. That was one of them. Now it's back, and they're proclaiming it's going to be what would be a hypercar with no regulations. So they've gone balls to the wall with the aero and lightweighting and power delivery from the engine, etc., etc. Naturally aspirated V12 made by Cosworth, might I add. Again, with my cynical hat on, the regular version of the Valkyrie, if you can call a Valkyrie regular, hasn't seen the light of day yet either. Look, they displayed it before the British Grand Prix around Silverstone 2 years ago, a pre-production version. But no one outside of Red Bull or Aston Martin have been anywhere near the car. So while yes, I would like to see this Valkyrie AM4 Pro come to light, I'm sure it'll be an outrageous vehicle. I would like them to actually finish the original car and then go from there. This feels to me like Mr. Lawrence Stroll is just kind of pumping out special editions, because there was a special edition of the current Vantage release as well, called the Vantage A, I think it was, as an homage to their oldest surviving original car, some old pre-war thing that I can't remember the name of, from like the 1920s. Yeah, because I'm like, in the world of share prices and exposure on the internet, I think maybe he's just pumping out this AM4 Pro bullshit just to keep them in the headlines and keep the IPO'd share price nice and strong. But hey, let's see what happens. At least a car that they have actually built and released, which apparently is very good, is the F1 edition of the Vantage. And from the reviews I've watched and read, apparently it's the car the Vantage should have always been, and it looks pretty much identical to the one that they're using as the Formula 1 safety car, hence the name. Yeah, I think it might be a little bit too late for the Vantage. It kind of came out with iffy styling, and it was good to drive from what I gather. Again, from reviews, I haven't driven one, obviously. But would you buy one over a 911? Or would you buy one over a lightly used Ferrari 488? I don't think you would. Now, maybe the F1 connection and the exposure they're getting from being in the Formula 1 World Championship, maybe that will aid sales of the Vantage, but as I said, maybe it's just a little too late. Yeah, I wonder. I invested some money into Aston Martin when Lawrence Stroll took over, and they were saying they were coming back to Formula 1 and taking on Sebastian Vettel. The share price was low, so I said I'll buy in. But I've since sold those shares because not that it was a huge amount of money or anything, but Aston Martin, the company forever in crisis, but manages to survive. But I just don't think they will never be the British Ferrari as they so desperately want to be. Here's a BMW M2. Lovely. Good to see someone taking it around the back roads on this lovely day. Ooh, sounds good too. Let's see if you put the foot down as he drives by. Please do. Not super aggressively so, but lovely. That was worth filming up here for, I think, you know. How many times have I filmed outside and not seen a fucking single interesting car? There you go. And what else was I going to talk about? I was going to put in a bit of a segment here about speed ramps, and I was trying to film a bit on a particularly egregious speed ramp, and that's not too far from my house, which has a very aggressive drop off on it. I was going to catch plenty of people, because people do catch the front end of their car and there's sump on it. When I'm walking by, running by, driving by, I see it all the time. I then went to go film by that speed ramp and catch some people doing it, just to show how people in this country just disregard speed ramps as if they're not there and take too much speed over them, and to highlight how pointless they are. But everyone was really well behaved, so I scrapped that idea, but I might return to it. Let's also talk about the Formula 1 actually. Obviously there's been a couple of races since I last was talking to y'all. There was Paul Ricard, which is usually a terrible race because it's a really crap circuit. It's flat, doesn't aid overtaking at all, and it's got these stupid runoff areas that are multicoloured, which apparently have this grippy paint on them to slow the cars down, which doesn't seem to work and just shreds tyres. But the race actually ended up being somewhat entertaining, because Max, who was on pole, made a bit of a hash at the start, which gave the lead to Lewis Hamilton. But then Red Bull pulled a strategy masterclass and managed to then take back the lead. Max managed to take back the lead and go on to win the race. But it was a good gritty, strategic, you know, war of the minds race. So like it complimented Paul Ricard by giving us an exciting race there, but the actual racing itself was still pretty dull. It's a crap track, and I hope they get rid of it pretty soon. Owned by Bernie Eccleston. He will always have his finger in the Formula 1 pie somehow. And then that was followed up by the first of two races in Austria. This one was the Styrian Grand Prix, because they for commercial reasons they can't call two Grand Prix within a season the same name. So the Austrian Grand Prix will be this weekend, even though it's at the very same track. And Red Bull and Max Verstappen really walked this one, quick all weekend, and then led start to finish comfortably. I think he ended up winning the race by, I think it was 40 plus seconds. He got a slap in the wrist because he slowed down on the pit straight to do a little burnout beside his team. Michael Massey, who's the head of the FIA safety delegate, was like, that won't be tolerated anymore because it's super dangerous, which it can be, because there was an FIA directive brought in a few years ago when in a Formula 2 race, Roberto Merri went into the back of, I think it was either a Formula 2 race or it was a Formula Renault Europe or whatever. But Roberto Merri, who was a brief Formula 1 driver from Manor back in the day, he slowed down, I think, to lay rubber down because it's one of those championships where they have more than one race, to lay some rubber down on his grid slot so he would have a better chance of a better start in the next race. But then Nicholas Latifi, who's now a current Williams Formula 1 driver, was battling for a position at the end of the race and then didn't see the stopped car of Roberto Merri and hit him at full speed and flipped over. And thankfully everyone walked away and was safe. But there was an FIA directive brought in after that going like, don't slow down and stop at the end of a race because it's super dangerous. But at the same time, back in Baku a few weeks ago, there were two massive tyre blowouts which were kind of, you know, Pirelli and FIA were saying were somewhat inconclusive. That happened though, and they're like, you know, shit happens. A driver has a little bit of a celebration after the race, and all of a sudden that's a big deal. Anyway, look, safety first and all that, but anyway, maybe they should worry about the actual problems that could really injure people, but whatever. But yeah, another Formula 1 race then this weekend, again in Austria. They're going a step softer in tyre compounds, which maybe might add something to it. It was very hot there this weekend, so maybe. But Max and Red Bull will possibly, you know, famous last words, probably putting the curse on him now, walk it again, which, look, we all want to see, not necessarily Red Bull and Max Verstappen particularly, although they're definitely the favourites this year, to win the race. I hope you can hear me. Actually, my fucking microphone is all over the shop. We just want to see someone win the championship that isn't Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. But if it continues as it is, because Mercedes have already said, look, we're not going to update the car, and whereas Red Bull seem to be still bringing some updates, which is aiding obviously their speed and pace, and it's hampering Mercedes. But it seems like Mercedes aren't going to do any development. So if that's the way it stays, you'd kind of getting the feeling now that Red Bull and Max have the momentum, and they're going to keep with that and walk this championship, which, although we want to see a change to the overall winners, we may have seen the best of the season already, and it might just progressively become a bit more processional now. Although there is some great racing still in the midfield. The midfield is good and tight. Charles Leclerc, who lost his front wing at the most recent race on the first lap, so it was 30 seconds down at the back of the pack, he came storming back through and ended up finishing 7th. So that was entertaining. But yeah, the overall winners, it might become a damp squib. But anyway, look, we all want to see a new winner, so I'm not saying let's change things, but it'd be nice to see how tight it's been at the start of the season. It'd be nice to see that continue. So I won't talk anymore about fucking Formula 1. Since I'm sitting on my Ford Focus, any updates on it? Well, I hope you all saw my video where I managed to get 90.54, I think it was, MPG out of it a couple of weeks ago. That was good fun, kind of. It was good fun getting the result. The actual experiment itself was pretty dull and boring. But anyway, since then, the engine warning light has come on, and it seems to have developed a very small misfire. So possibly during the week, I think I'll replace the coil packs, and I'll change the spark plugs while I'm in there as well. Hopefully that rectifies that. I hope that if that is to fix the problem, it will turn off the engine light itself, because I don't want to have to go and get someone with an OBD and wipe it and stuff. Maybe there's a trick to it, I don't know. It's a pretty analog car, so I don't know if that's possible. But other than that, yeah, it's been serving me pretty well. I was thinking about replacing it, but then some bastard stole my bike a couple of weeks ago, and I use my bike quite a lot. So buying a new bicycle is top of my list rather than getting another car. Although I do have a few saved searches on some classifieds that if the right thing does pop up, I could be swayed to get rid of this. But I'll hang on for a bit. It's NCT'd until next February, and there's a bit of tax on it. So yeah, I'll hang on to it for a bit. It's just, the only thing I don't really like about it is it's just a little bit too slow. Anything else? Oh, public service announcement. Hang on, let me get off my roof. Yep. A couple of weeks ago when I was walking around town, I found a centre cap from a Saab 900. And I always thought these were BBS, but it's actually from the back of the centre cap itself. It's a Ronald centre cap. There's one in around the Harold's Cross area that I know of, a red convertible that has these wheels. These were an option wheel in the day, which not many people got. But I saw that the other day, and that has all 4 of its centre caps still. So if you know of anyone who needs this centre cap, because doing a bit of research, they're not exactly common. They're a bit hen's teeth these days, especially an actual genuine one. So if you know anyone, or you are the person who's missing this centre cap, do feel free to contact me and I will give it back to you. I want to see the car and I want to see the wheel with no centre cap on it. That's the only way you'll get it. I don't want some charlatan coming along and saying it's mine and then just taking it and flogging it on eBay for a profit. So there you go, public service announcement. If you need this, or you know someone who needs it, get in contact. I'm going to leave it there because I'm gone very rambly. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As I said, if you're watching the video, hey. And if you still prefer your audio, I'll still put the audio out there. But until next time, be safe, be well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.